Hello, I'm Rev Gill, and I'm bringing you the weekly reflection from the Horwich and Rivington team. In our reflection today, King David has died and the kingdom passes to his son Solomon. Establishing the power of a new king is never an easy time. The same when we start anything new. Solomon will need to know who he can rely on and whom he should not trust. In a reading, he needs to ask God for his advice. Our reading is taken from 1 Kings chapter 2 verses 10 to 12 and then going on to chapter 3 verses 3 to 14. Then David slept with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. The time that David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his kingdom was firmly established. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of his father David. Only he sacrificed and offered incense at the high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the principal high place. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream of night. And God said, "Ask what I should give you." And Solomon said, "You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness and in uprightness of heart toward you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and given him a son to sit on his throne today. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. Although I am only a little child, I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of the people whom you have chosen, a great people, so numerous they cannot be numbered or counted. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, able to discern between good and evil. For who can govern this, your great people?" It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this. God said to him, "Because you have asked this and have not asked for yourself, long life or riches or for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right. I now do according to your word. Indeed, I give you a wise and discerning mind. No one like you has been before you, and no one like you shall arise after you. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honour all your life. No other king shall compare with you. If you will walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your life." This is the word of the Lord. I'm going to start with the serenity prayer. God, give us the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. It's a prayer that is attributed to American theologian Rev Gill, written in the 1930s or 40s. A version of this prayer is often used at AA and other recovery groups. There are some things that we just can't change. Therefore, we need to accept that there are some things we can't change and should not waste time on them. But there are other things we can change, and those are the issues we must use our energy and resources on. Solomon, the new king, is praying and asking for God for wisdom, which can be interpreted as discernment of good and evil. This was a time of transition. David has just died after a 40-year reign over Israel. Now his son Solomon is on the throne, and our reading says his kingdom was firmly established. It makes sense at a time like this to ask God for guidance and certainty of higher wisdom. Solomon loved the Lord, and he regularly offered sacrifice and incense to the Lord. He went to Gibeon, and while he was there, God appeared to Solomon in a dream, and God asked him what he wanted. Can you imagine if God just showed up and asked you to name one thing you wanted? What would you answer? Perhaps that's something you'll need to think about afterwards. The image of God as a fairy godmother is not really a favourable image, but here it is in the context of a dream. The enormity of involving God in our lives suddenly seems to make so much possible. Solomon must have thought the whole world had opened up and everything was possible. In this moment we see a side of Solomon where he is a humble leader. This was so different to the Solomon we can see later in Kings, where there are often power struggles and conflicting personality traits. Solomon, during his humble moment, asked for understanding of mind to govern your people and the ability to discern between good and evil. This is very profound. We all need wisdom when faced with time of changes. Wisdom is different from being smart and having a high IQ. Wisdom is having the ability to take a step back and look at the issue from a different perspective. This can be very difficult, particularly if we are passionate about the issue. The pandemic has made many people look at their lives and decide to make changes. Changing jobs, moving house to a completely different place, the loss of loved ones, and many more reasons. It's important before we make any major decisions that we ask for wisdom before we make those changes in our lives. Before making the big decisions, it can be easy to get carried away with the passion, but it's so important we step back and see the bigger picture. Why not ask God in prayer for wisdom and take time to make the decision, just like Solomon did? In prayer, Solomon is asking for his will and perception to be in line with God's. He is seeking a new vision for the people of God. Asking God for wisdom and vision for our lives is a step of faith. When we have big decisions to make, it's important we don't rush in and make a hasty decision. Let us step back and see the whole picture. Listen to what God has to say to us. Hopefully, we will then make the right decision. Solomon asked God to give him an understanding mind with the ability to discern good and evil. God rewarded him with both riches and a long life. Let's hope if we make the right decisions and ask for God's help, then we also will be rewarded. Let us pray. Father, we ask for your help and guidance in our lives. Help us to make the right decisions and help us to have the ability to discern good from evil in all aspects of our lives. Amen. Thanks for joining us today. Goodbye.